I'm your host, Carolyn Solo, LCSW, EMDR therapist, and mom of 3 daughters. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, everyone. This is episode 136 of the Future Template Parent Podcast, and it is actually a re-release of episode 98 from May of 2025, which is one of my more popular episodes, but I just thought I would re-release it in case you missed it. The title of the episode is Charging 5K Plus for EMDR Intensives, What Sets Top Therapists Apart. So give it a listen if you haven't heard it already, and maybe if you listened to it back in May, you could use a little refresher. Hope you enjoy, and I'll be back with a new episode next week. I'm actually going to have a great guest on, so I'm looking forward to all of you hearing that. Have a great week, everyone. Take care. I am sitting here in our unfinished basement recording today because, as a mom, needs must, and this is where I can be right now and not be interrupted. So, and of course, if you're not watching this as a YouTube video, you would not know that there's anything different. But if you are, you can see I'm in an unfinished space. Here I am. Anyway, so today's topic is the difference between you and therapists who are making 5K plus for EMDR intensives. So I have come up with sort of 5 things that are, what those 5K plus intensive therapists are doing. And I will say that here's what they are. Understanding their why for offering intensives is a big one. Confidence in setting their fee and in talking about it. Knowing how to talk to potential intensive clients to get them to book. Knowing and believing that their clinical skills will be able to deliver an amazing outcome, and being willing to invest in themselves and their business. Those are the 5 things that are making the difference between you and those therapists who are making 5K plus for their intensives. So I do really think that it matters a lot and isn't maybe talked about enough, is knowing and being really solid in your why for offering intensives. Like, why are you making the switch to offering intensives? There's a lot of reasons, but being very, very clear on what they are for you is really going to help keep you motivated, right? If you've been around the podcast a while, you know my why. Plain and simple, my family life was totally suffering, and therefore my mental health, under the weight of my demanding hourly clients' practice, and I couldn't keep up. I started offering intensives in the fall of 2022 when my oldest daughter started kindergarten and got an autism diagnosis. So with that, all the stuff hit the fan. There were a million appointments, constant calls from schools to pick her up, take her home, IEP meetings, emergency meetings with teachers, and on and on. Therapists and occupational therapists and GI specialists and, so many appointments. And I was really burned out. And so I was burned out with that, just the burden and the stress of that. And just also like seeing my child struggling, is hard regardless. And so but because of that, I was constantly having to rejig my schedule, constantly cancel and reschedule with clients when stuff came up. And then I was also exhausted when I was with my clients, and my head just wasn't in it in a lot of cases. Oh, and I also had a 3-year-old who was starting preschool that year and a 13-month-old. So yeah, I was burnt out. And, oh, that's right. And I was trying to write my dissertation and finish my PhD. So yeah, basically I was so burned out, and I needed to be making just as much money as I was and spending less time in my office. And I needed a lot more flexibility. And so voila, intensives, right? Ticked all those boxes. And that why, knowing that why, continues to be all the more true in the year since we've moved from Vermont to PA. Sorry, from PA to Vermont, right? So we moved in July of 2024 from Pennsylvania to Vermont, 4 states away. Obviously, we moved from like the suburbs of and we're talking close suburbs, like we were almost in Philadelphia, of a major metropolitan area to a 5,000 person small town in the Green Mountains. So, big changes. And my oldest daughter, my autistic daughter, really struggled with the transition. And we knew she was going to. I don't know if we were prepared for the extent that she was going to struggle. So essentially, we ended up taking her out of school after a month and deciding to homeschool her. That was not our plan at all. But it is we know now very clearly is what's best for her. And it's been a very good decision for her and therefore for the whole family. But that means that flexibility is even more important, right? Like my husband and I are homeschooling, or we need to be home. One of us needs to be home all the time. And so we just need a lot more flexibility, right? And, intensives give that scheduling flexibility because, first of all, you're only dealing with one client a week, the way that I work. I mean, I still do have a few hourly clients, but you can make it so that you have one client a week, one intensive client a week, and it's 3 days out of the week. So if I have a sick kid or a kid who has appointments, I can just not schedule on that day. If something comes up, I can reschedule just one person. It's not the same level of complexity in terms of, oh my God, I have 6 clients that I have to reschedule, call them all. Like that's just a lot. So that's scheduling flexibility, and I get to kind of determine when we're going to meet. So so I have a lot of autonomy in terms of how do I schedule myself. And that gives me that freedom to take her to appointments, to be home for the homeschooling piece. So my husband and I can kind of balance the load for who's kind of in charge of her needs for the day, not to mention picking the other 2 kids up from school and all that other stuff. So basically, the way I see it, my why, everything I've just said means that I have no choice but to be an EMDR intensive therapist. I can't be a therapist in any other way right now. And that keeps me motivated as I work to stay connected with referral sources and keep booking more intensives. And, and I also had to restart that process to some degree, moving to an entirely new state, right? I didn't have the same referral network up here. And that's been a journey this year to rebuild that as well. I think I'll talk more about that at some point soon, just because, it's been a year kind of reflecting on what it's been like to do that. So yeah, that's my why. And it's very motivating for me because I know there is no other way for me to run my practice at this point. And maybe that'll change at some point in the future. But I honestly love working this way, so it's hard for me to imagine changing it too much. But that's my why. It's so important for anyone who makes the switch to really know their why. And it doesn't have to be anything like mine, but it needs to be compelling and motivating. So confidence in fee setting also matters a lot. And this includes knowing what fee you really need to set for your practice, for your intensives. This is something I'll talk about in my free webinar on May 19th. Please don't forget to sign up at the link in the show notes. So how do you figure out what your fee needs to be, right? How do you come up with a fee that actually supports your life and what you really need, okay? And I encourage my coaching clients and you to think about what need really means to you, right? As in not just what's the fee that's going to allow me to cover my bills. Certainly that's like, where is that on Maslow's hierarchy, right? It's not at the very tip top. But we also want to have a fee that allows us to put money aside for things that matter, that allow a comfortable life, right? Because I think having a life where you are filled up in a lot of ways and cared for means you're going to be a better therapist, right? I need to have the resources financially that allow me to take good care of myself. And for us, that's things like childcare, which has been a journey this year too, with finding good childcare. But thankfully we have, and that's made a huge difference. But it's expensive because you get what you pay for to some degree. And also I firmly believe in paying childcare providers well, because they do really important work, so that we get cleaning help at home, because my husband and I don't really want to do that, and we'd rather use our energy for other things. I do a lot of grocery pickup. I mean, I guess it doesn't cost more, but I rarely go into the grocery store myself anymore because it just takes time, and sometimes, but for me, it's being able to have the resources to go skiing a lot like I did this winter. And the time to do it. and time to take like a nap if I need one, all these things, right? So all those things go into you figuring out your fee. Like all those, maybe it's massages for you, yoga classes, like, getting your nails done because it makes you feel really good and professional. Like there's nothing that's, or giving back in a way that's meaningful for you, like having resources to do that. Also important. All that goes into your fee, right? And so when and things like supervision and, business coaching and licensure fees and CEOs, like running a business is not cheap, right? So all of that needs to be accounted for. And you still need to have some money to take home on top of that. Health insurance, for God's sake. So when you know what that fee needs to be, your confidence in it can be really solid. And that's what it has to be. There's not a lot of room for sliding around here. You know why your fee is what it is, and you can state it with confidence without wavering because you understand it and you believe it, right? And this actually leads to the next point, which is knowing how to talk to potential clients about intensives in a way that makes them feel confident in booking this high ticket intensive with you. You know why you are charging what you are charging, and you feel good about stating that, right? And that is going to come across to the client, right? Your confidence, your calm, your assuredness in stating your fee actually inspires confidence in them. Okay. If you're like, well, I don't know, if you can't afford this, that's okay. How about that? That doesn't come across as someone who is confident in the value of what they provide. And you really want people to believe that you feel good about your offering when you're asking them to make this kind of time and financial investment. So that's one part of talking to the client. But also what's really important is, and you're able to do this really effectively if you're this 5K intensive therapist, is knowing why an intensive is an excellent option for this client and how to make that case for them, right? To them, I mean, sorry, for them, to them, and you need to know how to make this case in a way that's succinct, that instills confidence, and that is clear, and that you're able to kind of assess that and get to that quickly on the consult call. And that is kind of a skill in and of itself, because if it's a new client, because, certainly I highly, highly recommend, like, especially at first, like your current clients are your hot leads, right? Like talk to them first, and you're going to have a very good idea of why an intensive would work really well, right? But with a new client, it's one of those things where you want to, like, quickly, from after a few minutes of talking to them, be able to move into that conversation about, I'm an intensive therapist. Here's why I think it would be a great option for you, right? And the client should walk away from a consult with you believing and knowing that an intensive is their best option. Of course, there are clients for whom an intensive is not the best option. And you want to be able to discern that with confidence and then decide what to do about it, right? It's okay if you decide that that's a reason for you to refer this person out. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. Okay. If you want to be transitioning to offering mostly intensives, a client who doesn't want one, therefore they're not a good fit for you. That's okay. Even if they're a great fit in every other way, right? You're allowed to refer them out. But, in my experience, most clients would benefit a great deal from an intensive. So there's almost always an angle, and that makes it sound sleazy, like it's not real. No, like an argument to be made that's legitimate for why an intensive would benefit them. But, part of the skill is like sussing that out early on in the conversation. And I talk about that in my free training on the 19th, how to suss that out, how to seal the deal on that consult call with the potential intensive client. And of course, excellent clinical skills. I went into this, that absolutely sets those 5K intensive therapists apart. I went into great detail about this in last week's episode. So listen to episode 97 if you want to hear more about why clinical skills are your best marketing tool. But briefly, if your clinical skills aren't resulting in amazing transformations for clients, you're not going to feel comfortable charging a high fee, and you're not going to get high fee clients. You're not going to get people coming back to you and people referring referring other clients to you, referring people they know to you, right? If people make a big investment and then they don't get something out of it, you're not going to get that's not going to be good for your business, right? So you want to have rock solid clinical skills, really good treatment planning skills, to be that successful intensives therapist. And at this webinar on May 19th, I'm going to tell you what skills you need to master to be that excellent clinician, to create those transformations that make you the go-to intensive therapist, that get your name out there, get people talking about you. Like, I will tell you what those skills are, and how to hone them to create this transformational experience. And part of that will be treatment planning, which is also something I'm going to talk about in the webinar, and structuring the intensive. And finally, the EMDR intensive therapists I know who are successfully charging $5K and up for their intensives are not afraid to invest in themselves and in their businesses. Okay. They're not bootstrapping everything. Really, they're not. Whether it is investing in support, right? Different kinds of support you could be investing in, right? For example, I have someone who edits my podcast and writes my show notes. I don't do that. I just record the podcast, say, hey, the recording is up. You're next. you do your thing, right? I have what's called a fractional marketing officer, he's called a fractional marketing officer because he does this for a few different companies, right? I'm not his only client. He's great. Brent Gary, if you are looking for someone to do this kind of stuff for you, he's awesome. I'll put his info in the show notes also. He does all my website stuff, everything. Created my website, keeps them up to date, does SEO, all that stuff. For both he actually does for both my therapy website and my future template parent website, which is the one that has a lot more updating that needs to be happening on a consistent basis, but he maintains both. He tracks, traffic on them. Any updates I want, he does. He creates all my static posts for Instagram. He makes a content calendar for me. He writes all of my captions. He writes my emails. He manages all my automations and Kit and Stan and all those things. He makes all of my slides and documents and graphics look good and on brand. So he does a ton for me. And I have my own business coach. It's hugely helpful. Oh, and I have an accountant. And so, yeah, that's a lot of money that I'm investing, but the rewards are huge. And it means that I'm putting in the time into my business, doing what only I can do. And the other stuff I'm outsourcing, right? There's still some stuff I would like to outsource eventually, but for now I'm outsourcing. That's what I am outsourcing. And all these investments have made me feel so much more confident and have made me more successful, right? I need every single one of those people on that team so that my energy is going towards what I do best, right? The ideas, the content for the podcast, my therapeutic skills, right? And regarding a business coach, well, I wouldn't be anywhere without what I've done with my business coach. She has her eyes on every bit of content I create and that my marketing guy creates. She edits everything. She looks at it. She gives me her feedback. She understands the trajectory of my business because I've been working with her for 2 years. She's intimately communicates with me. She knows exactly the details of everything that I'm doing, which is so helpful. And she's my strategist for how to sell, how to market, how to launch, how to book, everything, right? I work with her closely. I always work with her closely, but especially around if I'm launching a group or trying to sell something, or just what's the strategy? How do we map out the year in terms of strategy, all that stuff. And from the big picture to the nitty gritty, right? I make my investment back that I've put into her many, many times over. My business would not exist if I didn't have that, her helping me conceptualize everything, right? And this is true of other successful EMDR intensive therapists I know. They have business coaches. They've made investments in their business. They know it's too much to manage on their own. They know that, as I know, having outside eyes looking on your stuff, outside informed eyes, means that they're going to see things and catch things that you don't. That's human nature. And you have someone who's further along down this path who can sort of say, do this, don't do that, use this software, don't use that. Just all these millions of decisions that can take us forever to make on our own, having a guide, really. My coach has the roadmap for success for me because she's done it, and she can take what she's done and what she's learned and help me apply it to my own business. So anyway, and that's true for all the other EMDR therapists I know who are booking lots of intensives and like kicking ass, right? They know that they need that. We all need that to be successful like that. So there you have it. And thanks for joining me today. The 5 traits of EMDR therapists who regularly book 5K intensives, right? 5K plus. They know their why. That was the first one for offering intensives. They're confident in their fee and they're confident in talking about their fee. They know how to talk to prospective clients to get them to book intensives. They're clinically solid and confident and they deliver results. And finally, they invest in themselves and in their businesses. Those are the traits that I see in the really successful 5K plus EMDR intensive therapists. So want to know more about any and all these traits? Well, then don't miss my free webinar on May 19th. 1 hour of your time, chock full of stuff that's going to get you results. Register at the link in the show notes. And I'm super excited about next week's episode, an interview with Rachel Duvall, LCSW. She's a therapist in Western Massachusetts, and she's an alum of my September group program. And she's one of those successful EMDR intensive therapists that I'm talking about. So I can't wait to have you hear her story, and it's going to be a great conversation. So please don't miss it. And I'll talk to you then. And I hope to see a lot of you on the 19th at the webinar. So take good care, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye.